And of course, sharing and raving and ranting and all those fun things. Anyways, I wanted to do a divine nugget about duality, which is in and of itself a duality. It's kind of the funny thing about it. And I think I want to start with it. Most of us have an easy time seeing things in duality. I mean, our our whole bodies are duality, like right hemisphere, left hemisphere, right hand, left hand. Two eyes, two nostrils, two ears, all that stuff. Two, upper, lower jaw. We're used to duality, and the problem is we often get stuck in dualities. And there are so many quotes in so many places from the last few generations to where we needed to really learn how to maneuver and move within the aspect of duality, though we're getting to this really great place where we're discovering there's far more than just duality. And the fun thing about that is that it can get us out of what, I mean, it's not commonly known as splitting, but I find it easier to know as splitting. It's a term that's often put in with BPD and various different personality disorders. And we've also been calling it pedestaling. And it can be like when you get stuck in black and white thinking or all or nothing thinking, or like I can only do this or that. Like I can say it or I can not say it. I can take action or not take action. I can buy it or not buy it. I can think about it or not think about it. I can stay or go. I can stay single or stay in a relationship, or I can leave. It's funny. My mind, I'm trying to get back to a place of duality, and I'm finding it a little more difficult because every time I list like this or that in my mind, I'm going, but there's also this way, and there's also that way, which is my point. Once you start to see dualities, the real fun and where you get into manifesting bigger and higher quality challenges is when you start to look for what's the third way. Like, say you have a situation where you would like to talk with someone, but they are not talking with you, or busy, or not available, or you can't reach them, or whatever thing. Or say that you've just had an argument with them and you're not sure whether to, you want to talk to them, you want to work it out, but it's not the time. Either you're not ready, or they're not ready, or whatever thing is blocking communication. And you're thinking, well, I can reach out or not reach out. I can think about them or not think about them. Well, for one thing, I mean, those are true, but they're not always true. And that which you resist persists too. So if you get yourself in a state of, let's say, I can think about them or I can forget about them, I can love them or I can be angry at them, that sort of thing. Well, there are also plenty of middle ground places that you can go. Like, you could feel apathetic, you could feel sympathetic, you could feel empathetic, you could feel resentful. Like, there are many other options of things that you could feel for someone than everything or nothing. And same thing with communication. Sure, maybe you cannot. Maybe you can tell it's not a good time to communicate with them in 3D, and yet you're not in a place where you're comfortable with not communicating with them at all. Well, you could communicate with them in the 5D, or you could write them a letter that it doesn't really matter if you give it to them or not, but you are still communicating with them. We are all connected energetically in many, many ways. And really, the only thing that stops that from being a viable option is your belief in whether or not that works or not. And really, if you think about it, I mean, so many of us get stopped up with communication thinking that like direct verbal communication is the only form of communication. No, it's not. There's nonverbal communication, there's pre-verbal communication, there's energetic communication, signs, synchronicities. I mean, think about how many ways you could talk. You could talk through other people. I mean, have you ever heard of a subreddit or subtexting or subposting? Like, there are plenty of ways to communicate with people other than directly. Now, usually we think of the most flavorful and fun way to communicate as being direct with someone, though why not explore all the other options of things you can do? And same thing with, like, do you take the job or do you not take the job? Well, is there another job that you could throw in the mix? Or why not pause? If you're not sure whether you want to take the job or not, the third option could definitely be you could pause and think about it. Do I want to take this job? Do I want to start a business? Do I want to do this? Like, really, the part of this nugget that's most valuable isn't whether or not you choose the third option. It's simply a value to see that you have a third option. And what that can do is really help. One, it can help with anxiety. Two, it can help you manifest things. And three, it can help you problem solve, which are really big skills that a lot of us severely lack. And or we think we have them, but we don't. And it can be as simple as maybe you just write down the thing that you want to do and you go do something else for a while. You don't have to make the decision right now, do you? Right? But once you get into, I wasn't sure whether to call it triality or omniality, but it feels like omniality is the best thing to look at it, because once you look at duality and you start looking for the third option, you start to see there's usually a fourth and fifth option at minimum. There really are infinite options, but once you get into that, you kind of can have fun going, like, especially if you start to embrace the absurd and go, well, like I'd say the communication one, like, do I communicate with them or not communicate with them? And you go, okay, well, in reality, I could write them a communication to give them later when it's an appropriate time to talk with them. And then a fourth option could be you communicate with them in the 5D. And then maybe you could go to absurdity land and say, like, the fifth option is you could rent a billboard, or a sixth one could be you could rent a skywriter. Like, there are all sorts of other options that you could get into other than the one, the black and white ones that you're doing. And that can really help you get out of the energy of splitting, especially when it comes to stuff like boundaries. Like, do I lay a boundary or not lay a boundary? Do I tell them I don't like that? Do I share my feelings? Things like that. And then you can get to a place where you can start to see when other people are splitting and putting themselves in a place of all or nothing. And then you can start to have a little more empathy for them. And by being in that place, you're no longer holding that energy. And when you can release that energy, well, I mean, you could be pretty comfortable in most situations. It does help with the stress tolerance, and then that vibration becomes contagious, and you're able to pass that on to others in your vibration, and then you start to create ripple effects that help open things up, which is really great. Now, since it's getting loud around here, I'm going to end this nugget. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll catch you in the next video.